Chief Justice Edward Douglas White and Brown versus the Board of Education. Early life. Edward Douglas White was born November 3rd, 1845, in Thibodaux, Louisiana, on the family plantation. His father was Edward Douglas White, Sr., a former governor of Louisiana. His mother is Catherine Ringgold. Education. He first studied at Jesuit College in New Orleans, then transferred to Mount St. Mary's College in Emmitsburg, Maryland. Then he went to Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. After the Civil War, he studied law at the University of Louisiana. Professional career. He served in the Louisiana State Senate in 1874. He was appointed to the Louisiana Supreme Court from 1878 to 1880. In 1891, state legislature appointed him as senator. He was appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court as an associative justice by Grover Cleveland on February 19, 1894. He formulated the concept of incorporation as an associate justice. He said that incorporation of the United States determined the citizens of new U.S. territories' constitutional rights. He's the 9th Chief Justice of the United States, and he served from 1911 to 1921. Federal courts have used his rule of reason in antitrust cases since his decision in 1921. He wrote 2 important decisions in favor of federal emergency powers during World War I. Presidential appointment. He was nominated to Chief Justiceship by President William Howard Taft on December 12, 1910. Landmark cases. He made the idea of rule of reason with his 1911 decision of Standard Oil Company v. the United States and the United States v. American Tobacco Company. During these cases, he created the idea that a restraint of trade by a monopolistic business must be unreasonable to be illegal under the Sherman Act. In Wilson v. Neal, he sustained the Adamson Act of 1916, fixing minimum wages and maximum hours for railroad workers. In Arver v. United States, the military draft was upheld. Death. He died May 19, 1921, in Washington, D.C. He was 75 years old. Interesting facts. His grandfather on his father's side was Dr. James White, a U.S. representative and judge. Grandfather on mother's side was a U.S. Marshal of the District of Columbia during James Monroe and Andrew Jackson's presidencies. He enlisted into the Confederate States Army. During the Civil War, he was captured at the Battle of Port Hudson in 1863. He was held until the end of the war. He was the first Associate Justice to be elevated to Chief Justiceship.
Landmark case, Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. Oliver Brown, a parent of a student, the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, and also 12 parents that were suing, but it lists Oliver Brown as the main plaintiff because it goes by alphabetical order were the parties that were involved. This case started on December 9, 1952, and ended on May 17, 1954. The case originates in Topeka, Kansas. What happened in the case? African American students were denied admittance to public schools because under the 14th Amendment, you can have separate but equal facilities for blacks and whites. The plaintiffs were denied help of the lower courts because of the ruling in Plessy v. Ferguson that said separate facilities for blacks and whites were constitutional as long as they were equal. Our case went to the Supreme Court because it was a violation of the Equal Protection Clause in the 14th Amendment. It was a unanimous decision in favor of Brown et al. The Supreme Court said that the segregation of public education made African American students believe they were below white students, and this was detrimental to their education and personal growth. The impact on American society was that it ended the Equal Protection Clause in the 14th Amendment created by the U.S. Supreme Court in Plessy v. Ferguson.